said, please, don't make me do it. And I was like, what can you say, you know? So anyway, this panel has quite a broad, basic topic. And we thought we could narrow it down by, first of all, establishing, by a show of hands, how many people here are professional musicians? Okay. How many people here are semi-professional musicians? Cool. And how many people here are kind of aspiring, wanting to get into the business? Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. So now we know where to pitch the thing. Vedi, Vidi, Vici. Okay. As coined by Caesar. I thought it was interesting to start by defining what success really means, because I mean, success to David Guetta is not success to Richie Hawtin, for example. You know, this is a very broad area, and I'm going to pass this one over to Grego. And also, before you launch into, just do a little introduction of yourself and tell them who you are and all that stuff.
Hi everyone, I'm Grego O'Halloran. I work for Resident Advisor. I live in Ibiza. Lived there for many years and worked there for over 10 years. And I look after business for RA across Spain, Italy, Portugal, Latin America. And I guess I'm here to kind of develop business for RA here. So please, outside of this panel, come and find me and talk to me about anything that you think I'd be interested in. We were talking yesterday about, actually before this panel, we were talking yesterday, and I said to Gary, well, you know, what is success? Because as Gary said, Richie Hawtin, or if you want to go to a further example, someone like Ricardo Villalobos, what he defines as success is completely different to a David Guetta or someone who's based on selling as many singles as possible. So to that end, it's kind of, I guess, quite difficult for us to sit here and tell you how to achieve success, because it does depend on what you define as your own success. You might just want to earn a living and that's it. You might want to be a multi-million selling pop star. You might want to have your own club. You might want to do this, or you might want to do that. So I guess if we're using this as a kind of an educational kind of panel, if you like, the first point you could probably make is that you need to be clear about what it is you want to really do. I think someone like Ricardo Villalobos, I've mentioned him, but he's a classic example of a DJ who probably could have made lots more money, sold many more singles, but kind of probably by definition of his character, he decided to almost do everything possible to not become that person that he kind of, I suppose, despised, that kind of pop star, anything commercial. He went as far the other way as possible, to the point of, in Ibiza many times I've seen him play, and he almost deliberately plays records that he thinks the crowd doesn't like.
That's nice.
Yeah, exactly. But for him, I suppose his credibility in playing the music that he wants and not what other people want is so critical for him and such a big factor. And his credibility is probably how he defines his success, his musical credibility, and his sticking to his principles, that he has the right to do whatever he likes. So on that basis, he's achieved that element of success.
Well, there's also the famous DJ Shadow versus Miami scene incident, right? You know? Shadow was doing what Shadow does, and whoever booked him made a massive misjudgment. I mean, the place was just not up for broken beats and sort of breakdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an example that kind of probably is happening more frequently now, where, I mean, we have the kind of, to me, it's a bit of a dreaded word, you know, EDM in the panel title, but there are lots of people now, because of how much it's crossed over, and how, well, if you look into any charts around the world, the top 40 singles or the biggest singles, they're electronic music singles. You know, David Guetta's produced for everyone. Swedish House Mafia in the charts. Electronic music is pop music. So you have people who don't know anything about electronic music or the culture or the scene, booking people like DJ Shadow because they think he's a big name or they've heard of it, and not having any understanding about what he does and what his whole philosophy is. To the point where they will say, you can't play this, get off.
Yeah. They were all waiting for the arms in the air moment, but Shadow doesn't do that, right?
Yeah. not really.
Not really, no. Alex, would you like to just give a brief introduction of yourself and also share with us your view of success?
I don't know if it's on. So, my name's Alex Fish. I work for Pulse Radio. We're an online website that handles editorial content and streaming music for electronic music around the world. We've got offices in Sydney, London, New York, and Ibiza. We've been trying to tell the story of sort of the underground sound, house, techno, that kind of stuff, and trying to make it more accessible to women as well, as opposed to just for guys, because if you look out, it's mostly guys here. We're going to try to change that. Hiring a lot more women writers who are smart and tuned in between. And then myself, I try to make it more accessible. The stuff that I was originally the head editor for the United States and South America, and then I've transitioned to a more business strategy role. So yeah, Pulse Radio, keep an eye out for it, pulseradio.net. And my definition of success is if you can eat and sleep and live and do what you love. I think that's what success is.
I think that's a really good one. But absolutely true. It's yeah. I mean, some people want the big dollars, but I mean, most people are quite happy just to make an agreeable living, right?
Especially in this kind of music. I mean, I don't think you're going to see. I mean, there are obviously examples of people who are very well off and they're driving Ferraris and stuff like that. But the happiest people that you meet are the people who can afford to go out to dinner and sleep in a bed and not worry about their shit getting stolen, and they're happy to do what they do. And I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing. And I'm not rich by any means, but I'm traveling the world, meeting people.
Is it, sorry to jump in, is it not human instinct though to kind of, once you get to that stage, just always want to progress a little bit?
More.
Absolutely. I mean, it's important to
in any job, in any job, not just music. I mean,
well, there's inflation as well to take.
Yeah, exactly. I think I agree, but I think if you imagine a DJ 10 years ago, 15 years ago when they first started out, the difference of what they would expect, not just in terms of the fee, but who picks them up, is it a 5-star hotel, you know, how well they're looked after, and the benchmark kind of always, it never goes down really, only goes one.
I mean, I think it happens like that.
It is true, that is human nature, but at least they can't whine about the weight of their records.
Yeah, the weight of records is definitely gone down.
Yeah, unless it's self-inflicted. Nikhil, I think you're in a unique position in a way because you curate. I mean, how many people are on Mixcloud now?
We have about 300,000 DJs, radio presenters. It's not just DJs, it's broadcasters, music professionals all over the world using the service, with about 10 million people accessing the service a month to consume that content.
I won't ask you what your definition of success is, because I think Alex nailed it, to be honest.
I would like to just add one point from the title, which is something about defining global success. One thing I think is very, very interesting about this scene in particular, EDM, electronic music, whatever you want to call it, is that it's inherently global. I mean, give me an example of an artist that, as they're growing their fan base, isn't already global, from small to big. It's the nature of online, the nature of electronic music. In the panel earlier, I was listening to the guy from Bonde de Roll talk about how a techno fan in Rio and a techno fan in Berlin are probably more similar than someone in Rio who listens to samba down the road from someone in Rio who listens to Brazilian pop music. So I thought that was a really interesting point.
So what doesn't, I mean, do you genuinely kind of curate? I mean, obviously you can't listen to much of what goes up is uploaded. But I mean, do you, if you spot something which is a bit special, can you kind of put some muscle behind it and help people to build their career?
Yeah, absolutely we can, but it's not really the kind of core of our platform.
You're a neutral platform.
Exactly, we're an agnostic platform that allows DJs and curators from all over the world to reach an audience all over the world, and to use our toolkit and our set of features to do that. And of course, if we have partnerships or if we spot really interesting content, we push it. But yeah, it's about the community curating their own experience really, rather than us trying to define what they should consume.
Sure. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit here, but I mean, any idea roughly how many Brazilian DJs are active on Mixcloud?
It's a very good question. I should have looked it up. Should have looked that up. I know that. So this is my first time in Brazil, and it's amazing to be here. We do have a much bigger audience in Sao Paulo than we do in Rio. I imagine that reflects the scene, and I look forward to checking out the scene in Sao Paulo. I suspect we have, broadly mirrors our traffic, so I suspect we have a few thousand, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. I think the big question is how can Brazilian DJs leverage their Brazilianness? Because let's face it, everyone's looking for a USP. And one thing that I think seriously, but just my own personal opinion of observing the scene, is that there's this weird kind of dichotomy in the Brazilian attitude. I mean, first of all, there's this thing about not diluting the kind of pure spirit of Brazilian music, which I think seems to be disappearing. But I noticed that up until quite recently, there were a lot of Brazilian people who were quite disturbed by the idea of kind of inflicting electronic textures or whatever onto a Brazilian feel. I mean, Mason and Jax did it and made a lot of money out of it. It's something which Europeans don't have any problems with. But I just wonder how much that could be used, because let's face it, it's a very crowded market. You need to stand out. And being Brazilian, nobody can take that away from you. You've got a massive musical heritage, and also a massive heritage of beats. I mean, I used to live in Barcelona. There are a lot of Brazilians living in Barcelona. Every time one of them had a party, at some point in the evening, every fucker was playing percussion really, and you're like, what the fuck? It's everybody. You all do it. You can all play. And it's sickening, because I was a drummer, right? I'm just like, watching. My God, these people are not musicians, but they're just doing it. And I think that's something that really perhaps has gone a little bit under-leveraged, underused. Why don't you start on this, Greg? South American.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about this as you speak, and the first thing that came to my head was, like, nowadays it's so anonymous, electronic music. We were talking about HNQO. I mean, if you saw the name HNQO, how would you know he's Brazilian? He's on Creations, he's playing with James Jones. It took someone to tell me he was Brazilian before I knew he was Brazilian. So in some ways it doesn't matter that he's Brazilian. I understand the point you make that it certainly use their Brazilianness, but it's kind of really difficult to do that because everything's so anonymous. There's hundreds of artists with different names, hundreds of labels with different names.
Why is it difficult?
Because
no one gives a damn.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Why would? I think I suppose what I'm trying to say is that hopefully that it doesn't really matter where you come from these days. It's kind of just based on what you produce, the talent, or I don't know. Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you come from, but everybody has qualities that they can leverage, and if you want to leverage your Brazilianness, I mean, there's certainly an opportunity to do that. I think like Brazil's party culture and clubs like Maroon and The Edge and the experience that is on offer here, is being captured more and more with video and recorded sets, and the world is waking up to wanting to experience and participate in Brazilian nightclub clubbing culture. So I think that, as Gregor said, it's absolutely true. It's anonymous. You're only as good as your last record and your last performance, and that's always going to be true. So it doesn't, if you're Brazilian and you're really good at it, you're going to be really good at it if you were from Berlin. But if you want to get creative with it, I think it's important to show the world what you guys are doing down here. It's my first time in Brazil as well, and I'm having a great time. I've been here for like, I don't know, a day. I haven't slept very much, and I anticipate that will continue. I think it's all about reaching out and using the web to connect with people, because I became good friends with Enrique, who's HNQO, about a year and a half ago, and before he really became who he is now, and he's always stayed true to himself. He's always been humble. He's always been as welcoming as all the Brazilian people I've met. So I would say, stick to your values the way you guys seem to be as a culture, and if you want to turn that into something, you can, but it's not really necessary.
I think, sorry, just to jump in, the other thing which I've always thought, and I've never found the answer to this question, when I was in Brazil last year, I talked to so many people about this, and actually, the best example I can think of is Dubshape, who, for me, are the exact example of an act who there's no reason why they shouldn't be massive internationally. but they've never kind of reached that level of international renown that they deserve. And I've never really understood why that is, because they had the releases on some of the big labels, they had some international exposure, everyone knew they were good enough, everyone liked them, but I honestly don't know what it was that stopped them from getting to that stage. Now they're the anomaly, because most other, for me, the biggest way Brazilian artists and acts can have more international exposure is by productions they have. Because there are loads and loads of DJs in Brazil, they're huge in Brazil, but as we know in the rest of the world, you can't just be a DJ anymore, you have to produce music. And unless that reaches an international audience, then you're going to be stuck in wherever that...
In a tiny country of
yeah.
240 million
Well, yeah, tiny. I mean, but it's, you know, if you take it anyway, if you're from Costa Rica and you're a DJ in Costa Rica and you don't kind of have, because music doesn't have the boundaries that, you know, to DJ in another country you have to fly there, physically you have to go there, you have to get booked. Whereas to use a platform like Mixcloud, you can let people all around the world. To have a review on RA, you can have people all around the world see your music. So there are no kind of boundaries as far as that's concerned. And for Brazilian acts to have that increased exposure, it has to come through productions, I think, through the music they produce and release.
I think speaking English is something that will really help you break out as an artist. I think that it's, as an English speaker, it sounds selfish, but 9 times out of 10, that's how you connect and make connections. And honestly, it's about reaching out to people. So your records can be hot. Like maybe I don't know the Dub Shape guys, but I know that they've been making good records and that they're very talented. And I think one of the things that people need to realize is, we're all kind of geeks, right? We're on our computers a lot and we're talking to people, and it's important to network and make friends and learn from other people. And the more people that you've got around the world, if you're a starting artist, you've got somebody in Mexico and he's playing your record. Maybe somebody in that crowd is with a big label or is starting a management company. It's like and by speaking English, which is kind of the common language for most people, when I talk to people in Tokyo, we're speaking English. I'm learning Spanish, but I don't think I'm going to get to Portuguese for like a year or two. So I think it's important to try to learn a language where you can communicate with as many people as possible, and use all the tools that you have with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to just connect with people and reach out and really broadcast what you're doing. Because if what you're doing is hot, people are going to figure it out.
If they get to know that. This is the Remco, as somebody who's been marketing manager at AE for the last 8 years, what advice would you give to an aspiring Brazilian DJ, because you've worked a lot in trying to break Dutch artists who already have an incredibly, Dutch electronica is hugely renowned, right? You were saying about
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm marketing manager of the Amsterdam Dance Event, which is basically like Rio Music Conference, but then a little bit bigger. Going on for 17 years now.
17.
17, yeah.
Yeah, this is the 18th this year.
And at this point we now have a festival program which takes place in 75 clubs all over Amsterdam. The festival itself goes on for 5 days, and during the daytime we have a conference at multiple spots, different conferences actually. And we have about 4,000 people attending as well. But the company who is organizing the Amsterdam Dance Event is like a music export office. And what we do is we go to other conferences worldwide, trying to push Dutch artists. We organize events, of course, apart for the ADE, the Amsterdam Dance Event. We also do other events as well, focus on pop rock music, on jazz music, classical, etc. And we also tend to do like small showcases on, for example, South by Southwest or Winter Music Conference. And that really helps in pushing Dutch artists. Well, they do it really great on their own as well, but like the new up-and-coming artists, yeah.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned, because obviously you've got all the classics like Tiesto, etc. But now you've got Nicky Romero, and there's just this constant stream of talent coming through that seems pretty much self-propelled and self-willed, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, one big difference between much any European country and Brazil, is that in Europe there are funds put aside, whether it's by government or by the collecting society or whatever, to actually send those people abroad to do gigs like the Dutch night and blah blah blah. And this just doesn't happen here. I mean, the wonderful people who organise this event pay for it themselves, which is astonishing and very brave and unbelievably brilliant. I love them for it. But I just don't understand why there is no institutional support for musical creativity. I know that you're shaking your head. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, you agree. Yeah, you're shaking your head with frustration.
No, just staring like you are. You know.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, really, such an incredibly musical country where music runs through your veins. I mean, why?
Yeah, but
is there no export push?
A few genres are more popular here.
Genres.
Yeah, a few genres more Sertanejo, those kind of music here, national music, and sometimes electronic music got in the suburbs. You see, it's like a force of expression.
It's on the outside.
In the outside.
The outside.
For a few, and it's marginalized sometimes because drugs, all this kind of stuff.
It's called the electric daisy signal.
Yeah.
Rock and roll had the same label about drugs. So.
Yeah, but it's
Go there. The electronic is pretty new compared to rock and roll. The electronic music is very new compared to rock and roll, so that's I think it's
But is there support for rock and roll? Like, is there institutional? I don't think there's institutional support for any of it.
Of course, they will get money. So, Axé, which moves a lot of money, Bahia and Northwest, it's really so. People pay 1,500 reais to get in a VIP stage. To see how that it moves money, so it's not interesting for them. Electronic music just for clubs are in. Just clubs have this interest.
They only are in it for the money.
Yeah, and electronic music is not so popular, and as the history of electronic music in Europe came from a long time with Kraftwerk and all those old guys, and here it's. As she said.
Started in the middle of 90s.
Yeah,
Sure.
90s.
Yeah. There was no African Bombati here.
Can I propose a solution then, rather than we don't want to spend half an hour bitching about the lack of funding and the lack of opportunities. We talked a lot about building bridges with international audiences and international platforms and labels and companies. Learning a language that will allow you to do that is obviously key. And I was in China a few years ago, and I was astounded to meet people there who are running incredible electronic music labels in Shanghai and Beijing, where I didn't really think there was much of a scene. But a lot of what they do is focus on releasing with labels like Dirty Bird. But they have also got their proprietary native scene, and they work together and they partner together to help the water rise and all the ships rise together. So if you guys are all, if you can find the talent surrounding you and all of you work together and you kind of grow your domestic labels, your domestic kind of companies and the scene and the business around it, obviously the whole country and the whole scene will benefit.
I think you nailed one of the things that I actually took the time to write down. It's that join forces with people who are like-minded as yourself, and reach out. There's a lot of people who want to DJ for the wrong reasons. They want to stand on stage and feel like they're God, and it's a worthless pursuit. You're never going to get anywhere if that's what you want. And if you're really doing it because you enjoy it, then when you make friends with people who do it, maybe better than you, maybe worse than you, but similar, you're going to learn things. You're going to get more excited about it, and 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of you guys working together are going to get a lot more mileage out of your hard work than just trying to have the spotlight solely on yourself.
I've got one more quick comment to add. As well as running Mixcloud, I've also run a very small label on the side, which is kind of house and techno.
What's it called?
It's called Man Made Music. And one thing I I realized I was quite astounded when I started the label, but it kind of made sense. I've been a DJ for a long time as well, and starting the label and doing A&R, I realized that actually we want to be sent music. Like, we're looking all the time for new, exciting, quality music, and every single label A&R guy out there, and every single DJ is just begging to be sent good, quality, new, and different music to what's in the crates of all the other DJs and all the other A&R guys. So, you know, like, it's really, really important to send your shit to people and just get that feedback and send it to people that you know are going to be responsive because they're in the same scene or they're interested in the same kind of sound, and you know, build a community around what you're making.
But one of the things that I think you just reminded me about is, if you look at the climbers, I think it's technically climbers, not climbers. They're from Mexico. They've released on Hot Creations, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And they are some guys, you know, there's a lot of concern. Everybody's sharing records with one another. Everything's digital, so you send it to one guy on Skype, and then maybe he's an asshole and he gives it to 2 people, and it's on a Russian website, and it's fucking everywhere. But in the beginning, everybody's so worried, well, you know, I'll only give it to you. Well, to be honest with you, like, one record is going to do way better if you get it everywhere, and maybe you don't get the licensing fees on that first hot record. If you're really talented, you're going to make a shitload more amazing records. So, you know, I think it's like, spread your stuff as liberally as you can, and it's kind of a blessing. Like, for the climbers, their stuff was getting everywhere, and people were like, oh, well, we feel bad because their stuff's leaking. Well, now they're getting booked everywhere, and now their records are not being sent to the people who shared them with the wrong people. So I think, you know, get it out there and don't hoard your stuff.
Nico's made a couple of really good points actually. The one about, and Alex has said, DJs listen to these tracks, all these tracks they're sent because no one else can listen to them for them. Yes, some of the bigger ones may have a picker or a selector who kind of filters the really bad stuff or the irrelevant stuff, but no one else can. These are the tools for the DJ. No one else can tell a workman which tools he needs to use to do a job. He has to do that himself. So there's probably, I know loads of people have asked me, you know, is there someone I can send this to, or how can I get that person to listen to the record? Well, if you send it to the generic A&R address, you can pretty much guarantee that Steve Lawler or Nick Curley or whoever it will be is going to listen to that record, because it'll take them 20 seconds, 30 seconds to buzz through it. It's quick, right? Yeah, and you reach that person, and you know, it might not be oh, we're going to sign that record, but it may be, I kind of like that bit, but the breakdown wasn't so good and you should work on that. And all of a sudden you're talking to your DJ hero who's advising you on what to do. And the only reason you've got that is because you have the balls to send it, press send, that's it. And the other point Nico made, which I think is really important, is that I don't know, I feel a little bit uncomfortable actually sat here trying to tell everyone that, you know, this is the way you should do it, and look to Europe, and these are the ways. I actually think Nico's right that a lot of the answers for how Brazilian artists can find more exposure internationally or reach where they want to go is by not looking at Europe and not thinking about how it's done in Europe and how to connect with Europe, but thinking about domestically what you do and how you act. Because if it gets to a stage where things are so strong here that it's impossible to not pay attention, then everyone in the world will pay attention. It doesn't have to be that you have to imitate how things are somewhere else, or you have to get a release on that European label or get booked in that American club. It doesn't have to be like that at all.
Yeah, the other important point there is that there's 2 things when it comes to this conversation. One is the creativity, the other is the industry. The other learning I had from my trip to China was that there's this thing in emerging markets called leapfrogging, where an industry will completely leapfrog a business model from a developed market because there's no need to go through that model if the market is different now. So the example of that in China is that there was never really a developed market for sending physical music. It's always been piracy, and it always probably will be piracy, for physical and for digital. So they're actually further ahead than most Western markets when it comes to, you know, these kind of 360 business models for artists and whatever. So you're in a position again to actually lead rather than follow when it comes to new business models around music and for the artists.
Totally agree, and it brings us kind of nicely to the whole DIY thing. I mean, DIY, you've made your own career, you've made your own career, you've made your own career.
Do it yourself.
Exactly, do it yourself. I mean, do it collectively, do it yourself. I mean, give some solid advice to do it yourself.
Well, I mean, it's all about, you know, number one, really your attitude. And like, you know, I've said before about the people who want to be a star and you think they're going to get girls, or if you're a girl, you think you're going to get guys, or whatever you might be into. Maybe you think it's going to make you cooler than you are. Those are the wrong reasons to do it. I mean, I get cooler every minute I meet somebody new.
The music is the reason.
Well, the music is the reason, but I think people are the reason too. And I think, you know, inherently it's a global thing. When you travel and when you meet people, you're learning about new cultures, and the more open you are to learning and to the more open you are to understanding that you don't know it all, that I don't, like, I'm going to learn stuff from everybody here while I'm here, and the more you can absorb, the better. But doing it yourself is all about sort of branding who you are, and you've already got the major tools that you need. You've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got Twitter, you've got Cinemagram, you got fucking grams left and right. and so you can really sort of blog your life, and if you're selective about it, people will start tuning into it. So if you're a relevant artist, or even if you're not, but maybe you're a great cook and you take pictures of your amazing food, and people tune into that, and then, oh, the person who loves your food, maybe their boyfriend is like, loves music, so he listens to your music. And there's ways to be discovered that aren't just straight, I'm a DJ, I make records, and I only hang out in nightclubs. Like, the more you can share what kind of a well-rounded person you are, there are more ways for people to latch on to something that they connect with. So,
I believe as many people are here, we do for love, man, because here in Brazil, if you work only with music, you probably would be under the bridge.
Exactly.
I have two professions. I have my lawyer during the day,
Yeah.
and during the night I do my productions. In the weekends, sometimes my wife gets real mad with that. I got myself walking to my home studio, and she's almost breaking the door. Get the fuck out of there! And I just a second, and I will finish it. And then, you know, it's kind of complicated. People don't see musician or electronic music producer or DJ sometimes as a profession, as you told many times.
Yeah.
People are for the wrong reasons to be there, and people get there. And that's frustrating.
I think that's
and
also.
So the doing it yourself is really nice advice. I believe everybody. I spend money, man, to make a good cover to my label tracks. I spend money on original drum to have a capability to produce it right, not stuck in all this. See, I've spent money to Fat Drop, which is a cool stuff. They organize a release and send to the right people. Anyway, it's hard. It's hard to get.
I think we did the hands in the air before about aspiring producers, and I think one of the biggest things when we talk about do it yourself is that it's kind of difficult to really break through without putting everything into it, and that means like all or nothing. So if you're a lawyer by day and a DJ by night, it's really difficult because you are tired at night, you can't put the thought into it, your wife's banging on the door, all these things. And it's a big barrier for people to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take the step to put everything on the line here to do this, financially, time, career, family, friends, everything. So that is a big reason why it's hard to go through. But I think Alex, when Alex was talking about the do-it-yourself, I think it's also the hard work aspect of it is that, it's honestly, I think just in life generally, the hard work, there is no substitute for really putting lots and lots of effort and work into it. And that means it doesn't mean that you make a few tracks and you send to your friend and your friend goes, yeah, it's alright. It means sending hundreds and hundreds of emails, like hundreds. It means going onto every single label's website, going through loads of emails, building a database. It means that these conferences, finding people who you want to speak to, going up and looking at their names tag and saying, who are you, here's my record. It means kind of doing things you probably don't feel comfortable with.
I think
time, yeah.
I think that's really good advice, and I'm especially glad you talked about the numbers. I typically sit here and give advice to entrepreneurs more than I do to musicians and DJs, because I'm not a musician. you know, I'm a shit DJ. But you know, I get a lot of entrepreneurs asking me how did I start my business and how do we make a success of it. And one of the things that's for our business is that I am a DJ. I understand the business I'm in. I understand why I wanted to build a platform for DJs. Yet, when we started the business, we interviewed and spoke to 500 other fellow DJs to understand their frustrations, their needs, what tools they need, and likewise with about 1,000 listeners. We did a hell of a lot of market research. It wasn't, you know, I'm going to speak to 10 mates down the pub. And when I speak to other entrepreneurs, I'm like, you've got to speak to hundreds of people. You can't just expect to have a group of a few people that you base your sample on for something you're going to spend the rest of your life doing. And the other thing that Gregor kind of painted this picture of the challenge of trying to manage a day job whilst balancing that with your passion at night. I actually think that's a good place to start. The example I'm going to cite here is a business that started in the UK called Innocent Smoothies. I'm not sure if it's well known here at all, but it's a phenomenal business in Europe. They've actually been part acquired by Coca-Cola. It's one of the, it's like an incredible, really healthy smoothie, and they've grown into a phenomenally big business. But they started in their spare time whilst they were working as management consultants, and I think, you know, and one of the guys was in advertising. And in their book, the first piece of advice the guy says is, if you want to start a business, just start. Don't put it off, and do it in your spare time. Because if you can't manage to make progress in your spare time, then frankly you're not cut out to be an entrepreneur. The same goes for music. If you can't do it in your spare time, you're not cut out to be a touring international DJ or whatever it is you want to aspire to do.
Spot on. That's spot on. And the thing is that it would be nice if we all had bank accounts where we could dive in 100% and give it your all. And I think Gregor's right. Like if all of us could quit our day jobs and just work on something, we'd get better exponentially fast, and we better and better. But unfortunately, we all have to make enough money to live. I've worked a million different random jobs and worked hard at night, and I think you just nailed it. If you can get a little traction behind you in your spare time, then you'll be able to leverage whether it makes sense to make a change where you're gonna, you know, be broke for 6 months and sort of risking it, because yeah,
you've got to be willing to take.
Psychologically, you know, if you've got everything resting on you succeeding, you're going to make mistakes because you're putting too much pressure on yourself.
But you are going to fail. You need to know that. You will definitely fail, but you have to be able to pick yourself up again and go again. There are lots and lots of DJs who couldn't get a gig, and they will tell you they couldn't get a gig with any promoter, couldn't get booked. So what did they do? They put their own party on and they played at their own party.
Right.
So if you can't get a gig, put your own party on somewhere. You'll get to know venues, you'll get to know other artists.
There's no excuse.
Yeah, you can book other DJs, you can say, okay, I'm going to book my favourite DJ. All of a sudden you're playing with your favourite DJ because you booked him because it's your party. So, you know, there's hard work, but, you know, you have to think about it as well.
When we started our business, my business partner has this phrase that he used, which I thought was amazing. He said, quitting our jobs and starting our business is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down. And you make sure you build that plane, because otherwise it's, you know, you're leaping to your death. And jumping off the cliff means you build that plane quicker, right? If you don't jump, you're not going to build it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with a variation of that. It's when you're doing something and you're sort of making it up as you go along. You're building the plane as you're flying it. But if you jump off that cliff, you need to build that plane when you're flying. So it's
very inspiring.
We have a living proof here, a guy that is a producer and DJ and is throw his own body.
Just busy dying.
So he did his own body.
And when you do these parties,
Dance or die.
you need to share this experience. You need to share the experience with the world. So if we're going back to the Brazilian aspect of it, if you have these beautiful venues, maybe you've got a jungle or a beautiful beach or something, and you have friends, you have photographers, you have videographers, you know, the more content you can pull out of those experiences, the better. So maybe you're not an amazing DJ, but you've got an amazing venue. So you've got great people there. So you film that and you put it together and you share it with the world. People want to play your party, and then in 2 years, then you've learned how to be the better DJ that you weren't before. So it's the more you can try to get people participating and sharing that with the world, you know, the better.
All the people in the room, we've just talked about You have to do things you don't want to do. That includes on panels like this, asking a question. You have to ask a question. I've set my demo to hundreds of DJs and no one responds. I bet there are people in this room who've done that or are sitting here thinking, I need the advice. You need to ask at these panels and conferences. You need to ask for the advice and help because you wouldn't be here otherwise. There's, what, 20 people before I had their hands up as aspiring producers. You're not going to go past that stage unless you ask a question now and say, okay, well, I'm making my record this way, but it's not working and no one responds. That's an example of the things you need to do. And yeah, it's not nice and it's not comfortable and you feel like an idiot and embarrassed or whatever, but do you really care if you get the advice you want and in 10 days you have a better record? I just think the question like people, it's how do you go past that brick wall? You reach a brick wall, you know, you make the records, you try and get some gigs, you feel like you're kind of trying to climb, you know, a mountain that's, you know, it's like a sheer wall or whatever. And I think, yeah, we talked about the hard work's important, you have to keep going. There's no substitute for kind of like, yeah, the hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. I know people who run booking agencies, like for big agencies, and they send hundreds and hundreds of emails a day trying to get their artists booked. And these are looking after really big DJs, really like superstar DJs. And they still send hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, like up to 500 emails a day. Hey, how are you? Do you want to book him again? Whatever it is, they're making that contact. If you're sending a few emails and a few demos out a day, you're not doing enough. Simple as that.
And you're going to hit up, sorry, and it reminds me of a quote that I've sort of tried to live my life by, that by Winston Churchill, and I might fuck it up, but I think I got it. It's success is moving from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm, and I think that's you know what he was speaking about is like you've got to knock on 1,000,000 doors and maybe one door is going to open. Like Babe Ruth, who's a big baseball player, he was like the home run king, but he was also the strikeout king. So he was fucking striking out because he was always swinging for the fences and trying as hard as he possibly could. So if you're doing that and you go, you play your record at a club and it doesn't work, well, make another record, try it again.
And also try and find out why it didn't work. Specifically, why at a certain point people shuffled off the dance floor rather than or whatever, you know, why?
I think, sorry, just I don't know if you want to say something. I think the other thing with electronic music that is kind of a lot different to other industries is that if we were here at the iMac, Apple conference or whatever, you're not going to get an audience with someone, the CEO of Apple, and be able to talk to him. But with electronic music, you really do have that opportunity. You know, a lot of the, like, especially in the underground scene, a lot of the labels, the generic email address on these label websites, it's just the guy running. It's just, you know, drum code. It's Adam Bayer. You know, you get straight through to Adam Bayer. It's like there's no like receptionist or PA. It's him. You send info, drum code, dynasty or whatever it is, and it's him, and he answers. And if you've got a question, he'll probably talk to you. It's accessible. You're able to access these people you're trying to almost imitate and become like or whatever, or you want to you want they inspired you or whatever it is. You have access to these people. You can send them the music. You can have the feedback. At these conferences, you can go up and say hello, and they'll probably say hello back and talk to you. So you need to make use of that, and it's kind of it's very accessible to be able to reach these people.
I find it really interesting how many parallels there are between trying to build your career as an artist and trying to start a business, which is kind of the perspective I'm coming from. One of the things that we did a lot of, and we still do a lot of actually, with our kind of growing our service and growing our business, is use kind of market research or questions and talk to people as a method of getting feedback and improving what you do, but also as a method of building partnerships and getting to know new people. So the opportunity to ask questions is not just to ask a question and learn; it's also to make yourself known. So people know
I
what
think
you're
it's
doing.
kind of the proof that you are. The proof of your ambition is your intense curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I told you that story about the 500 DJs that we interviewed at the start before we started the service and launched it. Well, guess what? They were the first 500 people that used the service when we launched it. It was always very strategic. Right? Every person we talked to, we learned something from them, and then we can end up working with them as well. So I think just try and find ways to hack the system and do things that are going to be more efficient and allow you to open up conversations with people that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. Play to people's egos, man. I mean, everyone wants to give you advice. Look what we're trying to do up here now, right? If you ask people questions and ask them for their expertise and their advice, they're going to talk to you. You can hopefully open up a really nice, positive dialogue. And then say, oh, by the way, do you want to hear my stuff?
Yeah, you're going to get a lot more like by making a personal connection with people.
For me, it works with a link. A great German producer and DJ. I went to a party. It was in another city, and I got a CD, and I just gave to him, and then okay,
Yeah.
and then I just wait. And in that time I was too stupid, and I didn't put my address. I forgot to put my address. But he came back. He searched on me on SoundCloud to find me and release my track. So for me, it works, person face to face.
Yeah, well, it's just about, and I think it's your personality. I think everybody.
So I doubt about this email, hundreds of emails, because sometimes the guy who gets bored.
But that's
see
one.
all this
That's
same
one
shit
guy.
all again.
That's one guy, and I don't know. Maybe you're already a superstar success, but I think that it's important to like HNQO is on Hot Creation, but his records are still going to other labels, and he's still making friends, and you could never know enough people. Like Richie Houghton could still meet some more people and do some more bigger things. It's about being ready for any kind of opportunity and trying to, Bill Patrick is a good example of somebody who's used his personality to get to a place that's pretty elevated. I mean, he's never been a producer. And Gregor spoke about very true things. DJs can't really be just DJs now. And it's 1 in a million that can. Bill Patrick is one of those guys, and it's because he's always at the parties talking to people. We ran an interview on Pulse. You should check it out. He does our monthly radio show called Private Stock. And in the interview, we spoke about. I quoted him. He said, "Be a cool guy. Tell some cool stories. Handle your drugs. Don't be a fucking mess." And just hang out with everybody, and you'll find that the doors start opening. So I think that's kind of like, you wouldn't give your mother that advice, but.
And let's be honest. I mean, the DJs who just go that extra yard and listen to that many more tracks are going to find yet more gems that other people haven't found, which makes them stand out.
It comes back to we talked about this before, like the amount of time you put into it, and it's on every level. If you get booked for a gig and you go 10 or 10 minutes before, play for 2 hours and leave after 10 minutes, that promoter's going to think he's a dick, not booking him again, no matter how the gig's gone. Because, it's common courtesy, whereas people like Ricardo, people book Ricardo because they want the after party story. Probably don't book him for the set, they just want to have the story about him coming to the after party and playing. So he's putting the time in a different way. But it still does come back to the time you spend, whether it be listening to music, making music, networking with people, bonding with people at a gig, networking, whatever. It comes back to there's a lot of time that has to come into it.
Can I also suggest one more thing that's fantastic advice, but also spending time smartly as well. The last thing we all want to do is spend time on the wrong thing. So it's incredibly important to self-evaluate, to be self-aware, and to know what actually is working for you. But one example is probably like playing 3 gigs a week every week of the year for 10 years isn't going to work. You can play a shit ton of gigs, and it's not going to make you a successful DJ. Playing more gigs just means you're going to play more gigs. So play the right gigs. Play the right gigs for the right people with the right crowd. Be strategic about it and spend your time in the most effective way possible.
Yeah, because if you're playing, like if you start DJing in Rio and you can get booked at this place and this place and this place, and you think you're the man because you're playing records all the time, well, you're actually kind of diluting your worth to the people in Rio. So let's say you get to a place where a really fantastic club and there's really good people, and you tell all your friends, you bring out all your friends, as opposed to people, you're diluting your draw. So it's, if you're playing all the time, then people think it's not special. So I think it's important.
Should not play all the time? That's what you mean?
Well, it's just once you start, if you can play all the time around the world and it's one unique thing, that's great. But sometimes DJs think if I'm playing in a club on Thursday, Friday, Saturday in my home city, I'm fucking killing it. But in reality, you're just a local DJ.
Because how's the rest of the world going to know who you are, right? And the things that get the rest of the world knowing who you are is making those connections to the rest of the world, either by probably putting out music, but there might be other ways if you're clever about it. Doing a radio show or podcast, maybe doing some international bookings through connections you've made, doing swaps with labels from other cities and other countries, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you really love a certain DJ, then get together with your friends and throw a sick party with that DJ, because you'll always have an open line of communication with them if you throw a great party. Like if somebody here has $20,000 and they want to bring Solomon down, like you've got dynamic.
Yeah, well, don't go for him. Go for someone who's going to cost you $1,000. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Start small.
Hold on a second. We have a question.
Actually, it's very inspiring, the idea of playing only the parties you like. Because I was just talking to some guys here, they're DJs, and that happens a lot in Brazil, not only in Rio. And he's saying he has got like 2 gigs in January, 2 or 3 gigs. He's from the underground scene, he doesn't have lots of parties here to play. So it's very inspiring to see, like, okay, I'm going to abandon my real job and be just a DJ or producer. But I'd like to know how important is that to have an international management to do your career. Because actually, like you said, Dubshape released to very good labels, but it didn't work really for them. But some of them, like Nico, and it really worked. He's having a great international tour. So how important is that, and how difficult is to get that?
I guess just, yeah, I mean, those people are there for a reason, because they do have, we talked about some of the things and tricks and all the rest of it. These people, they're professionals at knowing these tricks, and they also, if for example, if we take HNQO, I don't know, is he on Rebel Agency?
No, he's with 24-bit in Brazil, and then now he's on Jack Mode.
Okay. Well, the point still stands that no matter how big or small you are, okay, we'll start at the bottom. If you're small on a label with artists who are bigger than you, that booker's always going to try and sell you in with a bigger artist when he tries to get a bigger artist. So you could gain leverage from just being on that agency. That it happens all the time. Same with the manager. A manager's talking, they've got a big artist there. They probably offer to, they could manage you for a small fee and give you, I don't know, a few hours a week. If they're looking after a bigger artist who's got to deal with whatever brand or whatever gig, that's how you can gain the leverage from kind of, having those professionals who know what they're doing and have these contacts. But I'm not really sure it's kind of like essential. I don't think it's like really essential. It's kind of managers, bookers, and all these people will tell you it's essential.
Yeah, the other thing that's quite hard about this is that typically you don't go out and find them, they come and find you.
Yeah.
So you've kind of got to get yourself to a position where they find you. So think about, this is when it comes down to learning and understanding the industry as well as the creativity. What is it that a manager will do for you, and try and do as much of that stuff you can yourself, or get a friend to do it for you. And work, initially you can build, the manager is basically your services arm, right? They're going to do all the services that you need done for you, or they'll find companies to do that for you. You can find those companies yourself. Right? You can find international PR, press promo agencies, radio pluggers. You can get promotions companies to promote your shows if you're doing local shows. You can buy ads on RA for your parties. You can use social media. There's a lot of stuff you can do DIY to get that interest.
And nobody's going to work harder than you. Like at the end of the day, managers, like to clock out and they're out. But you can work all night and you can send those emails. And conversely, there's kind of like a little bit of a dirty backdoor to it all. If you know somebody and you want to pay them to like actively, it's possible to do that too. If you find a great agency and you arrange for them to spend like 2 hours a week, including you in this stuff, and you have that budget, that if you're a good artist and your stuff actually is relevant to people that want to consume it, that is sort of a possible way. I didn't do that, and I don't know anybody who did, but you could.
I think sometimes you can with bookers and managers and press. You probably spend as much time chasing them, trying to get them to do the job you're paying them to do, as if you just did the job yourself anyway. Nick was talking about working smart, thinking smart, not wasting your time. I still know a lot of DJs who get a lot of their own bookings. They've got a booking agency, they've got a manager, they've got a press agent, and they still get a lot of their own bookings just by, you know, giving a promoter a call, and he says, hey, when you come down and play, and you know, these are clubs in Ibiza, DC10, whatever it may be. They're not small gigs; these are kind of big gigs, and it still happens that old school way where a DJ speaks to a promoter and they sort it out. And yeah, you probably need the agent for other things, but yeah, you can do a lot of this stuff yourself.
I think another thing that we haven't talked about is building a platform for yourself that isn't just your own work, but something that you can own as a brand. So if you look at all of the big DJs that are successful, most of them have got either their own label or a radio show that is a brand in its own right, that is syndicated internationally. They have some sort of platform that they use to build their brand and to build talent through whatever it is that they, and that gets them to a bigger place. So if you can start early and build, launch a label, put your own music out through that label, put your friends' music out through it, and you can use that label as an opportunity to build those links internationally. And then you can then get the halo effect of that brand.
Yeah, well, it's all about ultimately finding something that's bigger than just yourself. So it's if you can find a way, whether you want to go in on a club night with other people or you want to do a label, any of those things are going to bring more people to the table and more people through the door. And every person that walks through the door, or that's on the phone, or that's on the other end of the email, is another opportunity, and you can't have too many of them.
Well, you said something about creating your own label. Me and my friends, we were thought about it, but we were kind of scared. Like, should we create our own label? Should we try to show our works or our friends' works, or more easily get into a label like a Reggae X6?
It depends. I'll let him answer it, but I think it depends on how much you're really going to commit to it, because none of the labels that you care about were just something that somebody did, an hour a day. It's like if you're going to launch Mixcloud, you got to really dig in and work your ass off. There's a million labels out there that are killing it right now. You just and they've got a big infrastructure. So if you want to start your own label, then you got to get a bunch of really smart people together with you.
Or you think you should get into a label that Reggae
or get on a
when you
label.
grow up,
Get with a good family, and they'll look out for you.
Make your own.
Yeah. How long have you been asking yourself that question?
No, it's been like not even a year.
Yeah. And what have you done in the meantime?
No, I've never really done something to make this. I was just thinking about, but never really thought.
Yeah. So my question is, you've been thinking about this for a year, right?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, how far have you got along the road of setting up your own label? How much research have you done? How much have you learnt about it? And conversely, how far have you got down the road of getting onto someone else's label?
Yeah, not too much. Just saw some things about more critical things, like how to get a label, how to create it, not really done something.
So just do something about it, right?
Yeah. You're right.
So pick one side of the coin.
Pick one and focus on it.
Yeah.
Or make it my own, or try to get into it.
Yeah, but pick one and just focus on it.
But do it like as hard as you can. Stop sort of thinking about
And
it.
more about the scare part, like you make your track and you can scare, I don't know if that's too good, and you put your face there, and people go, no, it's not good.
But this is what we talked about before, that if you feel like that, you're involved and you're not moving, you're not going anywhere, because you have to get your balls out and stick them on the table and say, that's me. And if people say, I don't like your balls, then they don't like it when you go and get some other balls, but hopefully they'll say, okay, well I don't like that, but this breakdown doesn't work. Like we said before.
You're gonna go by your sound or just by your name? Oh, I've heard him before, I didn't like it.
But this is, as an artist, as a creative person, not even as a creative person, any person in any walk of life, you live and die by who you are. You can't say, oh, I'm not going to do that, because then if it doesn't work, people might think I'm not that or I'm not good or whatever it may be.
It's about finding mentors too. I think it's important that, for instance, there's some people, like we're talking about, you send records all over the place. Well, if your music's kind of garbage listen, my music is not even amazing at all, but it was totally garbage in the beginning. And when I was sending it to people, I was sending it to like the top, top of the list, and they would listen to it, and I think that they do associate you with that. So if you send out something that's bad, yeah, they'll remember your name, and they might be like, oh, I'm not that down. So that you find people that you can trust, mentors that can sort of help you get closer to that. So you send it to like some DJ who you know is really good, and you say, look, give it to me straight. Like, what's good about this, what's bad about this? And once you've got those people that you can trust, then you hit the pavement, then you send the hundreds of fucking emails, then you bang on every door you can. But it's about finding people, and you can add value to them. So let's say there's some big DJ and you don't really know why he would want to talk to you. Well, maybe you can help him promote his club night. Maybe you can help, spread that word on Facebook or Twitter, and then you become valuable to them through spending no money of your own. And then you've got someone to give you great advice and get your music better, and then they can maybe even help you get it signed once it finally gets tight.
In the technology world, there's we've got to go.
Yeah, right. We have to stop. Been some great advice. Thank you, everybody. Sorry we have to stop at 7 o'clock. Oh, it's gone 7 o'clock actually. It's another panel in 10 minutes. Thank you all very much for coming, and most of all, thank you for staying. And panel, brilliant. Thank you all very much indeed.